Let's go straight into our discussion. I know that all of our guests are actually looking at many amazing technology every day. Could our honorable guest share with us what is the next game-changing technologies in the next year? Maybe Kim, could you share with us? Thank you.
Hello, nice to meet you. My name's Rhaime Kim, and I'm from Rice Robotics. We create different autonomous robots. So I think coming from the robotics world, you see Tesla cars, they do outdoor navigation. So what we do is we create technologies so robots can move in indoor spaces. So indoor navigation may seem like it's easier than outdoor navigation, but that's actually not necessarily the case. And the indoor navigation space is quite underdeveloped. So we're constantly trying out different methods that are presented, and that technology keeps on evolving. That's an example of technology that we're excited about and that we're really at the forefront of. I think another thing is we constantly get customer requests for different AI, computer vision related features. And I think the development of going from doing simple image recognition to being able to do analysis on videos and doing basically, for example, seeing, did somebody trip and fall? Like that is not as easy of a problem as it's not that easy to solve. So we're also excited to see that type of advancement in computer vision would make our robots even more useful.
Okay, maybe Lawrence.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Lawrence Chu. I'm a general partner at Lever VC, and Lever VC is a food tech alt-protein global VC based in Hong Kong. We raised nearly 100 million US for our Fund 1. We have partners in Hong Kong, in Israel, London, and New York. So we have a pretty broad coverage of companies around the globe. I think we've invested in 19 companies so far. For us in the food tech space, primarily there's two major technologies. One is precision fermentation. So this is taking different types of proteins and re-engineering them to become another type of protein that's edible and high nutrition and efficient in terms of how to generate that protein source. The other would be cell-based, and this is taking animal cells or DNA of certain meats that we may typically ingest and grow them in a bioreactor. So you don't need to farm, use water, have a lot of extra sort of materials to develop this type of protein. So it's a big part of the future. As we all know, why we do this and why we look at this is that there's a sort of a very high growth in terms of population, and the curve keeps going up. The environmental factors, ESG, and a number of different concerns to make sort of calorific advancements probably cannot meet the needs of the demand. So, food tech and alternative protein is a way to feed all of us and all our kids and grandkids in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Manav.
Yeah, so 100% agree with them, and to add on to what Lawrence said, we're a venture accelerator. We run accelerator programs across a number of different sectors, all kind of under a climate conscious umbrella. So looking at companies that we believe long term will help us build a much more sustainable future. One of those categories is agri and food tech. So we're fairly active investors, making a little over 25 investments in that space. We have a clean energy program. We have a bio and medtech program. We have recently launched an NFT and blockchain program with local Hong Kong unicorn Animoca. So we run a number of different accelerator programs, and we're very excited about a lot of the emerging technologies that are coming out of those programs. I think for us, if we think the next 5 or 10 years, anything to do with clean tech or climate tech is the most important thing to work on. I can't imagine what else we should be doing with our lives at this point, given the kind of potential disaster that is right in front of us. So anything that helps support the sinks or reduce the sources, I think is very important to work on, whether that's food and agri-tech, carbon capture, afforestation, anything to help ultimately reduce the carbon in the environment and then build up more sinks that allow us to capture it. So And there's a whole range of categories there.
Hello, Karena.
Yeah, thank you very much. So AngelHub is Hong Kong's first and only SFC-regulated equity crowdfunding platform. We invest in growth companies scaling here in Asia. They do not have to come from Asia. And we have a very diversified portfolio, so across industry and across technologies, and even across stages, where about 60-70% of our deal flow is in Series A, and the remaining in Series C and later stage companies. So yes, we hold Animoca in our investment portfolio, and WeLab, for example, but also earlier stage company, the famous FoodTech company, I think, where we all three actually put in action the beauty of partnering in this ecosystem, which is Avant Meats in the FoodTech space. We have our own fund, so we syndicate basically our own deals in terms of putting our own money. And looking into, different sectors and different industries, I think it was interesting when you asked the question about technology, this crystal ball question, what's next? I think one of the things that we look is, one, the technology and the advances that we should be expecting in technology. So you mentioned about AI, right? We're still there and looking on significant progress in the technology itself, but also then the application. Probably some of you have seen just very recently the HKMA and the Hong Kong Institute for Monetary and Financial Research released a paper in terms of AI and big data applied in the financial services industry. So very, very interesting. Arguably one is on the technology advances. The other one, the biggest bottleneck, is still the talent. So investing into talent that is able to apply and advance that technology. So we're looking into that. I think if I understood the question correctly in terms of the crystal ball a little bit, some of the things we're really excited about and looking is obviously into new user interface creations. So we have all seen the evolution of different G technologies from 3G to 4G to 5G. We're not even yet at the full potential of really exploiting 5G to its fullest. But there's obviously already research out there on trying to understand the holy grail on what is the new user interface that's going to create value. So, we went from voice to text to entire app ecosystems, etc. So what is the next? And not sure when we connect our brain to the internet, but so these are things we're obviously looking into. Just on a side note, also co-founder of WHub, and one of the things that we clearly see, and I cannot agree more, is that focus on ESG and how tech empowers the advancement of the ESG agenda. So really looking forward to great things. Our most recent deal we're closing is actually in that space as well.
Okay, thank you, our guests. This is so exciting to know that there are so many rising technologies in the coming future. I think I always have a question in my mind. Will robot replace human in the end? So, Kim, I understand Rose Robotics is pursuing disruptive technology in this area. Could you share with us what real changes will robotics bring to your business and our daily life?
Yeah, I think a couple of people came in. So again, I'm Rhaime. Here to represent Rice Robotics. I guess your question is, will robots replace humans? I mean, I think right now we have three different robots that do conduct repetitive tasks, and some roles that maybe it's just easier for machines to do. We have a delivery robot that can do connect with elevators and deliver goods. We have a disinfection robot that can do disinfecting by vaporizing a fluid. And then a customer service and security robot. I think that's where maybe your question is more relevant. We have these portal customer service and security robots, and some of the functions it does is check if there is water on the floor. And of course you can have a person do that, but if you can have a robot look for, tea spills, soup spills, actually from a property management point of view, this is a risk that they're always looking out for, because oftentimes the first way they hear about certain spills is after somebody trips and falls. And as everyday people, we might not be concerned about that, but these are the requests we keep on gathering. So there's actually ways for robots within the tech constraints right now to get them to be more useful in everyday spaces. Because I think overall, some of the largest companies in the robotics area have all been in the warehouse space and logistics. And there have been quite a few successes in that front, but service robotics, there are of course great companies tackling this, but I think it's personally the next wave and where it really gets exciting. How do we get robots in everyday places like malls, offices, residences, and that's what Rice Robotics is doing right now. So I think there's still, quite a bit of technical development until robots can, quote, do the complex jobs that we do. But for the time being, we're focused on specific areas that we can help automate. And then, there's still going to be people providing the emotional task of like maybe being a customer service person, but you can still have the robot be that next level from having a poster showing you how to get to the bathroom to actually guiding your customer to the bathroom, which is a different experience. So I would say that there is yet to be, some development until maybe you can comfortably say, okay, this robot can really do the full range of tasks that a person can do, but we're focused on, given the current technical constraints, how do we do something useful? So we can have customer service staff, security staff focus on the real issues rather than some of the repetitive things like looking out for if lights are turned off because they're broken or looking out for things like water spills.
Okay, thanks, Rhaime. What do you expect the next industry or sectors robotics will be disruptive other than what you have mentioned, the delivery or the service robot? Do you think such as in healthcare sector or in space sector, do you think that robotic can replace the human being?
I guess that's the question we're trying to answer because we have 3 different types of robots. So we're thinking, all right, what's next for us? Because and I think when you asked about healthcare, we have gotten quite a few requests from different people in healthcare about using the robot to use a lot of, I think some of the requests are, for example, how can you have computer vision and robots to be useful in a healthcare setting? So, those are some questions that we're working on right now. So I guess in healthcare, I think there will be some kind of robot nurses that are patrolling and looking around for typical things like, a patient falling down in geriatric care, et cetera. So there are definitely, I think we've seen that there are requests coming from that side as well. And the delivery of pharmaceuticals is a lower hanging fruit. So we've had customers ask for using the rice delivery robot for things like that.
Okay, thank you, Rhaime. Okay, I have a question to Lawrence because I saw a report. It mentioned that the FoodTech investment in this year hit a record high because FoodTech incur a lot of cost and effort in the research and development stage. Do you think that FoodTech really solve a problem that can outweigh the cost and benefit?
Very good question. So I'll just tell you guys a little bit why I got into food tech in the first place. So we do a lot of business around the world, especially in China, and we go to a lot of business meetings and obviously big banquets at the end of these meetings. And when you frequent some of these places, you'll often find there's a lot of food wasted at the end. And it just really got me thinking, I mean, if this is how a lot of people are going to behave and it's hard to change certain behaviors, and if we have a rising sort of middle class and also a calorie intake class around the world, we're going to have a very big problem in 10 years. I mean, there's a lot of food being wasted. So it really got me thinking about how do we not replace all the food that we take now. We all enjoy a nice meal once in a while, but how can we balance it? So like almost like a hybrid model. So coming back to your question about time versus money and the I guess the return on investment, I think there's a couple of different categories in the food tech space, alt protein space. So I think it comes down to cell-based protein, right, which is really deep science. And that does take some time to research and develop. And it's like my esteemed guests here also say, it's talent. So not necessarily a lot of R&D money, but it is time and talent. And obviously regulation and go-to-market. So I think there's, on that front, it's more of a time concern. We see Singapore as one of the first places allowing for a lab-grown chicken to be served. And we'll see more and more of that. I think on the kind of alt protein fermented side, I think that's more of an FMCG game. So we, for example, invest in kind of top 2-3 players in different jurisdictions and countries around the world, in the top players there. Because although there is global brands like a Beyond or Impossible, we also see that there's going to be their local champions, like regional players, for a variety of different reasons. It could be logistics, it could be flavor, culture, the end product. So we do see a rise in a lot of these FMCG marketing-based products. And like any product, the cost to go to market is quite high. So there we see there will be a lot of players, and there will be a lot of money required to go to market. But you can often see the returns relatively quicker, or losses relatively quicker in that case. So I think overall, in essence, we think it's still an overall very good investment, because what we're also looking at, as a lot of our panelists also mentioned about ESG and really about the future. We all know that the food industry currently is a massive problem, right? A third of all the world's fresh water goes to kind of the animal livestock business. 20% of all kind of methane gas and gas is produced from that business. So I think there's a massive opportunity if you kind of look at it a bit more longer term, because the cost to environment and the cost of doing business, as we see, is rising immensely. And even though short-term investment may be high, but I think the long-term payoffs in this business will be very good for investors.
Okay, thank you, Lawrence. Lawrence, you have mentioned ESG. Blockchain. This is Karena's question. Wow, I just know that Bitcoin hit the record high price recently. Karena, how will blockchain technology change our business world? Of course, if this is possible, our participant may want to get some tips for the next crypto to skyrocket.
Wow. You know their entire conference is dedicated on blockchain, right? So I'm not sure how to pack that and give a quick overview. But I mean, obviously there is the currency aspect to blockchain, right? Cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and I'm not going to speculate. We can have an offline conversation of where I think the price may end up at the end. But it's interesting because within that falls not only Bitcoin, there falls a whole discussion about CBDCs, etc. Central bank decentralized currencies, etc. So that's obviously one element. I think what is really, really interesting, because the question that you're raising is how does it really change the business world, right? So on top of the financial transactions, if we look into a blockchain and the whole industry 4.0 reorganization, smart contracts, all the opportunities that the technology actually provides is huge, and we have several interesting companies we're looking into in that space. And once again, actually, a whole conference, our next conference, is dedicated on that industry 4.0, and obviously blockchain is powering a big part of it. Even further going into the whole development of dApps, of decentralized apps, and even if we think about the real breakthrough with Ethereum, what Ethereum really allowed is to have public and private chains that can actually interact and allow a little bit what the internet and the intranet is able to provide for companies. So that's definitely very interesting space. But talking about a company that we just referred to, and what is really interesting, that whole concept of decentralization and how it really shapes entire industry as it turns down business models, or even turns out where value is created and how it's captured and who benefits from it. So what blockchain allows is obviously the digitization or tokenization of assets, or any type of assets. And we have very interesting applications, because when we start digitizing or tokenizing assets, it allows for fractionalization, right? It allows for multiple owners, and if you look into industries such as real estate, right, that obviously opens up great opportunities, even in the art world, right? And that is obviously for private collectors very interesting if you can own a fraction of a Picasso and start dealing it, but even for museums, because it could really interchange their whole go-to-market and business model, right? What if you, as a art lover, start being able to contribute and equip museums, and there's a whole avenue for them to open up fully new financing models for them, and that's really, really interesting. And coming then all the way to what it really allows then is, if we think about that now when we started recreating physical assets or creating virtual assets in the virtual world with a true and clear ownership, we come to what now seems to be in everybody's mouth, NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which again opens up a hugely other big area. I think what is really interesting very often around all that hype that we forget when it goes about speculating on Bitcoin, or we see NFTs selling off for over 65 million US dollars, right? The famous Beeple artwork that Christie's sold off, is like, where are we going with this? And I think that decentralization and that internet of value, arguably, to come to your question with a long turn, is it really creates the internet of value, right? The internet of true ownership, the internet where, for example, when you ask me which are some of the industries that are leading mass adoption, is in the gaming and entertainment space, right? So what if, and not what if, it's actually what is truly happening right now, you as a gamer start not only first pay to play, then free to play, but now you earn to play. You can earn your living, right? And Axie Infinity's success story in the Philippines, right, was people now making a living out of creating digital assets and earning a living out of it is just huge. So again, trying to pack a lot of what blockchain actually allows. But I think in short, what we're really excited about is this really the big Kodak moment of some of the big tech. Because again, it basically puts value creation ownership upsy-daisy from what we were used to, and that opens up huge opportunities.
Okay, thanks, Karena. Recently, Facebook just changed their name to Meta. Could Karena share with us what is your view on the metaverse? Is it related to blockchain or something?
Yeah, of course. So that's why I talked about the Kodak moment of the big tech, right? Obviously, they realized as well. And it's interesting because this question about, centralization of a decentralized world pops up now in the context of the metaverse, and Mark Zuckerberg becoming very, very interested in the metaverse, as well as when we talk about currencies and the concept of central banks, decentralized currency, right? What is a central bank decentralized currency? So, but coming back to your question, I mean, if you talk to the people that are really entrenched in the gaming or general gaming industry, entertainment industry, metaverse, of course, there is this question about can the mass adoption from the purists of defending that internet of value and an internet of everything can be fast enough before any big player, because it's a question of scale, right? At the end of the day, before any big player can come in and start owning and back again, dictating any type of protocol or anything else. So for all those who believe in the power of the blockchain technology and the metaverse, so up to us to just be faster.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we go to the next question. I always think that environmental issues are a side product of technology evolution. Manav, could you share with us how can sustainable development be achieved through technology?
I think it's a question that kind of perhaps intersects all the previous questions that preceded it, because I think if we think about robotics, robotics ultimately are a form of climate resilience in a way, because I'll give you an example. We invested in a company called JetBrain a few years ago, which we exited during COVID to a larger group in Canada called Solaris. JetBrain was building hospital delivery robots. And during COVID, obviously, the fragility of our supply chains and logistics infrastructure was tested. JetBrain was able to very simply showcase that they through automation, computer vision, were able to navigate and facilitate aiding nurses and hospital staff with deliveries. They got acquired by Solaris, which was doing something similar, but with more of a cleansing UV cleaning system. So they kind of merge those two technologies together. Climate change is connected to food tech in many ways, right? I mean, this is the core of it, but all the ripple effects as we think about, what happens if we are not able to build a more sustainable foundation, which means less inputs to create higher quality outputs. We're going to have more zoonotic diseases, and those will require climate resilience technologies that only can be brought in through, robotics and other means, right? So I think we have to think about the applications, not only in the outputs of the work or the way we currently live, and the types of technologies that are going to be required. One, to mitigate those issues, but also secondly, to think through what we need to do given the fact that a lot of this is inevitable and we are moving to a future that climate change is prevalent in our day-to-day lives. I think jumping over to food tech, it is probably one of the most inefficient industries on our planet. Humans live on less than 1% of the arable land on the planet, yet we use over 50% of the arable land to produce meat, or feed or create the grain that then feeds the animals. So even the most high output animal, like the chicken, you're still less than 1/10x the output from a calorie input to output perspective. And unless we're able to build more sustainable alternates, less inputs for higher quality outputs, and find ways to continue to drive those prices down, we will continue to create the ripple effects, I think, through this industry. I think we're quite excited about the blockchain space. We've been, just recently started investing in it, and I think what we're excited about is more of the applications of the technology across industries. So as we think about ways to better trace and track a lot of the data, we've always believed if you can understand the data, you can improve the world. So the more you understand the data, the more you have a potential to basically enhance value. And I think blockchain as a building block, in essence, can intersect a lot of those technologies. So I think this is important because this literally is about our futures, our kids' futures, our families. And I think we have to think about the technologies we're building today and the ripple effects of those technologies, or the applications of those technologies, given the fact that some of this stuff is inevitable, and we need to build tools to help us address and bring stuff back to normality. I think the fact that we're all wearing masks here and still at a conference is the biggest example of what can happen if we don't get this right.
Okay, thank you, Manav. What do you think? What is the most needed sustainable technology today or in coming year out of so many different kind of applications you have mentioned?
I think obviously we're very passionate about the food tech space. I think building, cultured meat, bringing down the cost of growth serum to a point where it's sustainable and scalable. Used to cost $100 US per liter. Now it's almost at the sub $10 range, and I think only when we're able to get it down further will we be able to actually build these cell lines and cell banks. I actually think Hong Kong and China have a tremendous opportunity to build on that foundation. I think this could be a huge new manufacturing opportunity for China to literally export the future foods for the whole world. If it's able to, using its infrastructure, get these prices down. China's going to spend $5 trillion US according to their 14-year plan over the next 5 years. $5 trillion US to invest into R&D and innovation and support these type of categories. So hopefully this will be very much on the agenda. So I think we're very, very motivated to make sure that there's more food innovation and sustainable food innovation.
Okay, thank you, Manav. Okay. So I believe all of us care Hong Kong very much. From your perspective, how will the Hong Kong technology landscape be evolving after the pandemic? Maybe Rhaime, because I understand your Rice Robotics is originated from Hong Kong. Maybe you can share your observation to us.
Yeah, I guess for Rice Robotics is extremely relevant because we started off in the delivery robotics space. And then we ended up actually transitioning. We created in 2 months' time, adapted the same robot into the Jasmine disinfection robot in direct response to the COVID pandemic. And a lot of our early business was related to COVID. For example, actually the first paid robot launch we had was at a quarantine hotel where I actually stayed last March. Basically we had the rice delivery robot delivered to different quarantine guests in the hotel. So this is obviously very COVID related. One of our largest first customers was K11 Musi, the New World Mall in TST. And that whole, the reason why after a year of discussion, they ended up using our robots in the viral kind of YouTube ads, social media ads campaign is because they were battling a couple of COVID cases in the mall. So I think for us, we quickly adapted an existing product and found product market fit, in response to the COVID pandemic. And people ask us, investors ask us, okay, what's next? Like, what's your post-COVID product? And our answer to that is our portal customer service and security robots. So that product is not necessarily related to COVID. It's just an accumulation of all the requests we keep getting from our mall and office and residence clients. So I would say pandemic, we've really, I think it's made the adoption of different autonomous robots faster, not only in Hong Kong, but also in some other places as well.
Okay, thank you. For other guest speakers, because I understand that your portfolio companies or your incubators, most of them are also facing different challenges in this pandemic situation. Could you share with us what is your observation? What do you expect them after the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue in every crisis lies a great opportunity, right? And I think one of the things that we realize is that the value proposition of specifically tech companies in various sectors just crystallizes so much stronger in the pandemic. And you talked about adoption, you talked about also trust from a consumer point of view, right? In technology, we're all enablers that really accelerated, the growth of a lot of companies. I mean, it is a catalyst in both ways, right? So it either, indeed totally brings you out of business or really propels your business, because consumer habit changes take a lot of investment, take a lot of money, unless it is kind of like this external impact. So again, just in the financial service sector, obviously trust. We talked already about NFTs and blockchain. I think what is really interesting, even from the WHub perspective, even not only talking about the AngelHub's portfolio companies, but we can see that the tech sector has really thriving. A lot of unicorns or soonicorns here in Hong Kong. And if you follow the news very closely, well, if not, just subscribe on whub.io, so you'll get all the news. But I mean, yes, Animuka joined the Unicorn Club for sure. Amber did. We have unicorns or soonicorns. Green Monday did amazing growth over the past 12 to 18 months. Same as actually Frenetic. So there are some very beautiful homegrown Hong Kong companies that really benefited a lot, from the pandemic. And so I think it's arguably in that tech and entrepreneur scene, I think we're the best equipped to seize the opportunities that such dramatic shifts in consumer behavior and market dynamics offer.
Okay, thank you. Manav or Lawrence, do you have any input?
Yeah, I think this is an evolving state, but we moved. I was living in China for 10 years. I moved here about 7 years ago to set up Brinc, and I've seen tremendous kind of evolution, not only in the talent, the excitement, the energy, and so many people getting involved. It's also, I think, quite rare to see this or Hong Kong becoming a nexus of a number of key categories and technologies. Usually, a lot of this innovation has happened outside of Hong Kong. Our portfolio today, we have 200 companies, and over 80%, almost 85% is not in Hong Kong. But we're starting to see a lot more of those type of teams domestically. I think because we're not able to travel as well, we're exploring Hong Kong further, and I think a lot of people are doing the same. And I think as we think about more scale with China's investments potentially coming back into the region, hopefully Hong Kong continues to be a driving force in a certain key or a number of key categories. We're obviously hopeful that it's going to happen in the blockchain space, the food tech space, and a lot of areas that we think are going to be important building blocks.
Okay, thank you. Lawrence?
It's definitely been a tough time. I think I've had friends move out of Hong Kong to the Bahamas, nice and sunny there. But I totally agree. It's a temporary thing. I think with these challenges will come opportunity. And the biggest opportunity I think we have is really Hong Kong as a hub for IP. be it in deep tech or food tech, various types of technologies, because we are still kind of China's gateway to the world and the world's gateway, to the region. We have kind of professional services, whether it's finance or legal professions, being sort of world class. So that won't go away. But I think we definitely need to invest more in kind of people and nurturing people. And I think we have a great system here in terms of attracting talent. I go to HKUST and Poly and a lot of these universities. They're like top ranked in blockchain globally, right? And they have spawned, food tech companies, deep tech food tech companies, and robotic companies. So the talent does come, and it's not just from China. I see students from all over the world. And we are actually a global marketplace, right? We obviously can test in Hong Kong, serve the Greater Bay Area if need be, but it's actually a global marketplace that we deal with. So I think that mentality is very, very important.
Okay, thank you, Lawrence. Finally, it come to the end of our panel discussion. I would like to say thank you to all of our honorable guest speakers. Thank you.